The Stars That Guide, a Bedouin-inspired sleep story. In the time when wisdom travels by word and the desert teaches those who listen, when honor is measured not in gold but in kept promises and open tents, there lived a young man named Khalil among the Bedouin, in the vast desert lands where sand dunes shift like water and the stars hang so bright they seem within reach. Khalil lived with his family in the traditional way, moving with the seasons, following water and grazing for their camels and goats, their black goat hair tent a home that could be folded and carried, planted and raised wherever the family needed to be. This was the way of the Bedouin, the desert dwellers, those who had learned not just to survive but to thrive in a land that seemed impossibly harsh to outsiders. It was late afternoon in the cooling season, when the fierce summer heat had passed and the desert became almost gentle in the evenings. The sun was beginning its descent toward the western horizon, painting the endless dunes in shades of gold and amber and rose. Khalil's grandfather, Salah, was preparing for the evening, arranging the fire pit outside their tent where the family would gather once the day's heat fully released its grip. Salah was one of the elders, a keeper of stories and proverbs, a man who had crossed these sands for more than 70 years and knew the desert the way others might know the lines of their own palms. "Grandson," Salah called, his voice carrying easily across the open space. "Come. Walk with me before the evening meal. There are things I wish to show you, words I wish to share while the light still holds." Khalil felt honored by the invitation. His grandfather did not make such requests lightly. He gathered his headcloth, secured it against the cooling breeze, and joined Salah, who was already setting out from the camp with his walking stick in hand. They walked away from the cluster of tents, out into the open desert where the sand lay smooth and unmarked except for the wind's patient calligraphy. The silence was profound, not empty, but full, the kind of quiet that invites listening with more than ears. "The desert is the greatest teacher," Salah said as they walked, his feet finding the firmer sand automatically, decades of experience in every step. "It teaches patience, because nothing here grows quickly. It teaches humility, because no matter how strong you are, the desert is stronger. It teaches generosity, because water shared may save a life, and a life saved may save your own another day." Khalil listened carefully, knowing that his grandfather's words were not casual conversation but teaching, the transmission of wisdom that had kept the Bedouin alive and strong for countless generations. They walked toward a rocky outcrop that rose from the sand like an island in an ocean. As they drew closer, Khalil could see that in the shadow of the rocks, a small desert plant had somehow found enough moisture to survive, its sparse leaves a defiant green against the beige and brown landscape. "You see this plant?" Salah asked, pausing beside it. "It teaches endurance. It does not waste its energy on many leaves or showy flowers. It sends its roots deep, stores what it needs, and waits. This is desert wisdom. Know what is essential, hold it close, let go of what is not necessary." He gestured with his walking stick toward the vast emptiness around them. "Our people learn to live like this plant. We do not carry what we do not need. We know how to wait. We understand that the desert gives only to those who respect its nature, who work with it rather than against it." They settled in the shade of the rocks, and the relief from the direct sun, even at this hour, was immediately noticeable. Salah pulled out a small leather pouch and offered it to Khalil, dates, sweet and sustaining, the fruit that had nourished desert travelers since time beyond remembering. As they ate, Salah began to speak of the old ways, of the values that defined Bedouin life. "Sharaf, honor, is everything," he said, his voice taking on the tone of deep teaching. "A man's word must be as solid as these rocks. If you promise, you fulfill. If you give your protection, you protect. Your honor is your wealth, more valuable than any number of camels, more precious than water in a drought. He paused, letting the words settle like sand finding its level. Hospitality is not kindness, it is sacred duty, he continued. When a traveler appears at your tent, even a stranger, even one from a rival tribe, you welcome them. You share what you have: coffee, dates, shelter, safety. For 3 days and a third, they are under your protection. This is law older than memory. Khalil had experienced this hospitality his whole life, had seen how his family never turned anyone away, how even in lean times, the guest was served first and best. But hearing his grandfather speak of it as law, as sacred obligation, gave it new weight. Why 3 days and a third? Khalil asked. Saleh smiled. 3 days is how long the food a traveler eats with you sustains them. During those days, their strength comes from your generosity, so their safety is your responsibility. After that time, they must make their own way again, but while they are sustained by your food, you are bound to protect them. The sun continued its descent, and the shadows lengthened. The heat of the day was finally, fully releasing, and a gentle breeze stirred the sand, creating miniature dunes that would be gone by morning. I want to teach you the proverbs tonight, Saleh said. The sayings our people have carried in their hearts for thousands of years. These are not just clever words, they are survival instructions, they are moral guidance, they are the distilled wisdom of countless lives lived in this harsh beauty. He closed his eyes, and when he spoke again, his voice had the rhythm of recitation, of words polished smooth by many repetitions. If life gets tight, loosen it by travel, he said. This means that when troubles press upon you, sometimes the answer is movement. Not running away, but seeking new perspective. The desert is vast, there is always another horizon, another possibility. Khalil repeated the saying quietly, committing it to memory. A light burden is a safe journey, Saleh continued. This teaches that what you carry matters. In the desert, every extra weight costs water, costs energy. The same is true in life: carry what serves you, leave behind what does not. Another saying: the generous is close to God, close to people, close to paradise. Saleh opened his eyes and looked at Khalil. You understand? Generosity is not weakness, it is the highest strength. It creates bonds, builds reputation, ensures that when you need help, help will come. As Saleh recited, Khalil felt each proverb settle into him like seeds into soil. These were not abstract philosophies, they were practical guides, tested across millennia of desert life, proven by the survival of his people. The sky was deepening now, the blue taking on purple tones as evening approached. The first stars were beginning to appear, faint but growing stronger as the light faded. Come, Saleh said, rising to his feet with the careful grace of age. We will walk to the high dune. I want to show you the stars as they emerge. They walked across the cooling sand, and Khalil noticed how different the desert felt as day surrendered to night. The harsh clarity of noon gave way to something softer, more mysterious. Shadows pooled in the hollows between dunes. The air smelled of sand and distance and the particular scent that comes when heat finally leaves the earth. They climbed a tall dune, their feet sinking slightly with each step, finding purchase in the firmer sand beneath. From the top, they could see for vast distances, the rolling landscape of dunes, the dark shape of rocky outcrops, the distant smudge where their camp lay, marked by the beginning glow of cooking fires. As they watched, the stars emerged in earnest. Not a few scattered points as in cities, but thousands, tens of thousands, a river of light flowing across the sky. The Milky Way appeared like a road paved with crushed diamonds. The stars are our maps, Salah said quietly. Before there were compasses or GPS, there were the stars. Our people learned to read them, to navigate by their positions, to know when to move camp, when to expect rain, when to plant the few crops we sometimes tended. He pointed to specific constellations, calling them by their Arabic names, telling Khalil which were most important for navigation, which marked the turning of seasons. The desert teaches us to look up, he said. In the day, we watch the sun, the quality of light, the movement of sand. In the night, we watch the stars. We are always watching, always reading, always learning from what is around us and above us. They sat on the crest of the dune, and the sand still held the faintest warmth from the day's sun, a gentle heat beneath them. I will tell you a story now, Salah said, the kind we tell around the fire in the evening. Listen not just to the words but to what they teach. His voice took on the cadence of storytelling, and Khalil settled into listening, the way he had since childhood. There was once a young man traveling alone across the desert. He was proud, strong, and believed he needed no one's help. He carried little water, thinking he would find a well soon enough. But the desert is patient with fools only so long. The young man lost his way. His water ran out. The sun beat upon him without mercy, and he began to despair. As he was about to give up hope, he saw in the distance a tent, a single black tent, like a raven sitting on the sand. He stumbled toward it and was met by an old woman, alone, who welcomed him without question. She brought him water, gave him dates and bread, invited him to rest in the shade of her tent. He was ashamed, remembering his pride, but he drank the water and ate the food gratefully. "How is it," he asked the old woman, "that you live here alone, so far from any tribe?" She smiled and said, "I am not alone. The desert is my companion, the stars are my friends, and every traveler who passes is family for 3 days and a third. What loneliness can exist when the tent is always open?" The young man stayed the required time, and when he left, he was a different person. He had learned that strength is not in needing no one, but in being worthy of trust. He had learned that hospitality both received and given is what makes life in the desert possible. Salah paused, letting the story settle. "This is what our stories teach," he said. "Not abstractions, but how to live, how to be human in a place that might seem inhuman. The desert demands community, demands generosity, demands that we remember we need each other." The night was fully arrived now, the stars brilliant overhead, the temperature dropping into comfortable coolness. In the distance, Khalil could hear the faint sound of their camels, the soft bleating of goats settling for the night. "There is another saying," Salah continued, "the tent is the honor of the desert. Do you know why we pitch our tents with the entrance facing the direction travelers are most likely to come from?" Khalil shook his head. "So that anyone approaching can see the opening, can know they are welcome. The open tent is an invitation, a promise. It says, here you will find safety, here you will find sharing, here you will be treated as kin." He looked at Khalil seriously in the starlight. "This is not just old custom. This is survival strategy. In a land where water is scarce and dangers many, we survive by network, by relationship, by the knowledge that the stranger you help today might be the one who saves you tomorrow." They began to walk back toward the camp, and the fires were brighter now, multiple families gathered in their traditional spots, the community spread across the sand like stars across the sky. "Poetry is also part of our tradition," Salah said as they walked. "Not just stories and proverbs, but poems that capture feeling, that record great deeds, that speak of love and loss and the beauty of this harsh land. He began to recite, his voice rhythmic, the Arabic words flowing like water over stones. Though Khalil did not catch every word, some were in the old dialect, he understood the feeling, the celebration of desert life, the acknowledgement of hardship met with courage, the praise for horses and camels and the generosity of chiefs. Our poems are our history, Salah explained. They record who we are, where we come from, what we value. When books were rare or impossible, we carried our identity in verse, in words memorized and passed down, changed slightly by each generation but keeping their essential truth. They approached the camp, and Khalil could smell coffee, the cardamom-spiced Arabic coffee that was offered to every guest, that marked every gathering, that signaled welcome and warmth. His grandmother and mother had prepared the evening meal, and the extended family was gathering, cousins, aunts and uncles, everyone coming together as they did each night, the communal meal that reinforced bonds, that created the space for stories and teaching. Salah led Khalil to the fire and gestured for him to sit. Others were arriving, settling onto woven rugs and cushions arranged in a circle around the flames. The fire was not large, fuel was precious in the desert, but it was enough to warm and illuminate, to create a center. Coffee was poured and passed, the small cups filled and refilled in the traditional way. Dates were offered, and flatbread, and rice with tender lamb that had been slow-cooked through the afternoon. As they ate, conversation flowed easily, talk of the camels, of water sources, of news from other families, of plans for the coming weeks. But gradually, as the meal concluded and the coffee continued its rounds, the talk quieted, and everyone turned their attention to Salah. This was the traditional time for stories, for proverbs, for the transmission of wisdom that happened not in formal lessons but in these gatherings, in the presence of fire and family in the vast desert night. Salah began to speak, and his words wove between story and teaching, proverb and poetry. He spoke of the values that defined Bedouin life, honor, courage, loyalty, hospitality. He recited proverbs that made the children laugh and the adults nod in recognition. He who has no past has no future, Salah said. This means we must remember who we are, where we come from. Our ancestors survived impossible hardships. Their strength flows in our blood. When we face difficulties, we remember, we come from people who crossed waterless wastes, who faced sandstorms, who endured. We can endure too. He told stories of great generosity, of chiefs who gave away their last camel to a guest, of families who shared their scarce water with strangers, of the belief that God provides for the generous, that what you give away comes back multiplied. Khalil listened, surrounded by his family, the fire warm on his face, the night cool at his back. He felt part of something ancient and ongoing, a tradition that stretched back through countless generations and forward into all the futures yet to come. As the night deepened, the younger children began to drowse against their parents. The fire burned lower, and people began to drift toward their sleeping areas, the day's work and the evening's fellowship complete. Khalil helped his grandfather to his feet, and together they walked to the sleeping area of their tent. Inside, the rugs were laid out, the blankets ready, everything arranged with the efficiency that came from a lifetime of practice. "Remember what you learned tonight," Salah said as he settled onto his mat. "The proverbs, the stories, the values. These are your inheritance, more valuable than gold, more essential than water. They will guide you when I am gone, when you face choices, when you need wisdom." Khalil lay down on his own mat, looking up at the tent roof where a gap showed stars beyond. He reviewed the evening in his mind, the walk into the desert, the proverbs, the story of the generous old woman, the gathering around the fire. He understood now, more deeply than before, that the Bedouin way was not just about surviving in the desert but about remaining human in the face of harshness, about creating community in isolation, about maintaining honor and generosity even when resources were scarce. The desert taught, but it was the people who learned and then encoded that learning in words that could be carried in memory, shared around fires, passed to children who would carry them forward. He drifted towards sleep with his grandfather's words echoing in his mind, "If life gets tight, loosen it by travel. A light burden is a safe journey. The generous is close to God, close to people, close to paradise." In his dreams, he walked the desert at night, guided by stars that seemed close enough to touch. He saw his ancestors, countless generations of Bedouin who had crossed these same sands, who had relied on the same values, who had gathered around similar fires and told similar stories. He dreamed of tents open to the desert, of travelers welcomed without question, of water shared freely even in drought. He dreamed of camels moving in long lines across dunes, of the patient endurance that was the desert's greatest lesson. He dreamed of proverbs floating like stars, each one a point of light, together creating a map, a guide, a way to navigate not just the physical desert but the landscape of a good life. And through all his dreams, he heard his grandfather's voice, steady and sure, carrying the wisdom of ages. The desert is the greatest teacher. Honor is everything. The tent is always open. Khalil slept deeply, held by his family, connected to his ancestors, part of an unbroken chain of desert dwellers who had learned to thrive where others would merely survive. The night deepened over the desert. The stars wheeled overhead in their eternal paths. The sand lay still, holding the warmth of day within it, releasing it slowly to the cool air. The camels rested, the goats slept, the fires burned down to embers. And in a black tent on the endless sand, the Bedouins slept the sleep of those who know their place in the world, who carry their wisdom in their hearts, who understand that what matters most cannot be seen but only lived: honor, generosity, courage, the bonds between people that make life in the harshest place not just possible but rich with meaning. All was well in the desert. All was as it should be. The stars guided. The proverbs remembered. The tent remained open. And the wisdom continued, carried forward in words and deeds, in the opening of tents and the sharing of water, in the gathering around fires and the telling of stories that taught what it meant to be truly human, truly alive, truly Bedouin.